Chris, GearNoir on the forums. It's that time of the week again, Monday. Just got done with all my yard work, so I need to cool myself down, give a nice cleanup and shave, and I figured I'd do that on camera, do my weekly video for you. Today's going to be kind of different because, what was it, last week I think I did my video, and Nurse Dave said he watched the video with his dad. Nurse Dave from the Shaving Cadre forums, and his dad made the comment that, man, that guy doesn't talk much about shaving at all. He's just kind of rambling on about other stuff. So this one goes out to Nurse Dave's dad. This one's for you. I hope you watch it and it's a little more informational for you. I'm not going to be doing my Feather ACSS. That's the Feather Artist Club shavette that I usually do for my first two passes. That kind of straight razor style shavette, the Western style. What I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to use my Game Changer. I've kind of made that decision for this week. I don't know why, just to mix things up a little bit. Normally I enjoy keeping up my shavette skills and my SR skills and at least making two passes with it, because for a while there I was actually doing all three passes with the shavette and I was getting really good results, but since I've stopped doing that and only been doing two passes and then cleaning up with the third pass with a DE style razor, I felt I've lost some of that skill, and so I at least like to keep the first two passes in there. It helps me feel personally, whether I actually do or not, that I'm not losing that skill or not losing my touch. But for this week, whatever reason, I decided to mix it up a little bit. So I'm just going to be using the DE. Once again, this is the Razor Rock Game Changer with the barber pole handle. Still in really awesome condition. I don't have any complaints about it. I've had it, I think, well over a month now, and been using it consistently during that time, mostly for my cleanup and against the grain passes, that last pass. But today I'm going to use it for all three. It's got a Astra SP blade in there. I think this is its second shave. I think I changed the blades on Sunday morning or Saturday night before I did my Sunday shave, and so a fresh blade should be really good. And got my brush soaking here. It is synthetic, but I like to keep in the habit of soaking my brushes anyway if I think I need to, especially for the soap I'm going to be using. But I've got my Rudy Vey Egg synthetic with a Tuxedo knot, and this soap is, let me get the cap, the DR Harris Sandalwood. This is a very good scent, a good soap actually, but it's very polarizing and how well some people can or can't get it to work. I find I usually do okay. It's a little finicky. It doesn't have much, I think, of a ability to hold water past a certain point. There's a really fine line between the soap is too dry and then you overdid it, put too much water in, and so getting to that perfect point can be difficult sometimes, but when you do, it's a really solid soap. But I've actually been blooming this. I put about literally 10 drops of water in there, and you don't have to do it with this soap. It is a triple mill, I think, but it does help out. So, and that goes for all soaps. There's a lot of softer soaps than these ones. The DR Harris ones, like Proraso, is super soft. Tobacco is actually pretty soft, even though it's triple milled. And blooming is just something that's preference. It makes it easier. I used to not do it for a while, but I just found that I enjoyed the easiness of not having to really scrub my brush for a long time to get a lather load up. But so I've been soaking my face for a little bit. Just putting some hot water on there. I prefer hot water shaves over cold water shaves. Cold water shaves are good if you usually get a lot of irritation during your shaves, or maybe if you're still new to shaving, because their skin remains tight but the whiskers are still hydrated, whereas warm water kind of opens up the skin and pores, hydrates the beard, and I feel I get a little bit more closer of a shave, but there is the potential for more irritation as well. But so hopefully that won't happen today, but prep is always important. And so I've got my brush, and I've got this lightly bloomed DR Harris, and I'm just going to start working it in there. DR Harris probably is one of those that requires a little bit longer of a load because you want as much product as possible on the brush, and because it's hard, it's a little bit difficult to gauge exactly how much you're loading on the brush, so you just better safe than sorry. I like to have more lather than I need, then have to go back to the puck later and rebuild the lather. And since I face lather, that can be kind of a pain for me if I have to do that, because it just takes longer, and it's not as enjoyable if I have to go back and restart a lather. Might be easier for the bowl latherers, because they just have to watch how much is left in their bowl and dip back in when they need it. Alright, so you can see what I got there, and I don't know if that's going to be enough. We're going to hope. It's been a while since I've used this, but what I'm going to do is, I like what some of the guys on the shaving carder did. By the way, we have a lot of good videos out there. Just watching the guys do their stuff, sometimes you pick up some extra techniques that you never thought of. So one that Chad does a lot, he takes that extra bloom soap and kind of rubs it on his face just to not waste anything. I got that. And that'll also help hydrate still. And I'll have a little extra soap on my face. Alright, got my egg. Let's see what this does. Definitely seems like I got enough. The DR Harris scent is a little bit more of a cologne-y scent, I think. It's pleasant, kind of sophisticated in a modern way. Start adding water. So when you're face lathering, or even bowl lathering for that, to that point, whatever you start with, you usually want to start with as dry a brush as possible, not totally dry, maybe like moist or damp. That way the brush can really grab onto the soap and pull it off the puck in layers, and it gets built up in the bristles. And because if you start off with a really wet brush, the chances are that right away you'll get this really unpleasant, foamy kind of bubble bath lather, and that's not good to shave with. And if you already haven't put too much water in it, it's going to take a really long time to work that lather into something usable. So I start with a drier brush and maybe a bloom soap, or just for creams or softer soaps, I'll just load with a drier brush and not bloom. And literally when I'm adding water, it's just a few drops of water at a time out of the faucet, because you don't want to break the soap if you can avoid it. You can fix a broken soap if you add more product, but it's just way too difficult sometimes, not worth the effort. Sorry, I'm kind of eating the lather today. I know KJ would be ashamed of me right now. So as you can see, it's still thick. It's still got a good amount on the brush, but it's not that point where it's kind of exploded yet. This is one of my favorite parts of shaving, is building a lather. Not two lathers, one lather, but it's pleasant because you get all the scent of the soap and slickness of the soap. taking on kind of a nice sheen now. Notice that that last few drops of water I added really almost doubled what I had on my brush. It's almost to that perfect point. And that looks pretty good right there. Always want to make sure you work all the areas if you're face lathering, because you don't want dry spots and overly wet spots. You want a nice even lather. So look at that guy. That's a lot of slope. Looks like it's at a good spot. We'll find out when we start shaving. Alright, so first pass, generally I always do 3 passes. I do a with the grain, some kind of across the grain, and then a mostly against the grain pass. And what that means is, let's say this is your face that you're going to shave, and that's like a hair that's sticking out of your face, for lack of a, it looks kind of weird, but you'll get the idea. So with the grain pass is, if this is the hair, it's going to be down north to south direction. Across the grain will be like this east to west or west to east direction. Against the grain will be south to north. And what that does, doing 3 passes, is the idea isn't to lop it all off at once, that hair and that facial stubble. It's to kind of take it off in passes, slowly reduce it, because if you have like longer hairs, it's just going to be harder in general to take it all off at once unless you're using a shave head or a straight razor. But when you're using a DE, it's a little bit harder with the guard and whatnot. But it can also be unpleasant. Your hair will start pulling, at least in my experience, your hair will start pulling if it's longer and you're trying to just zip through it. But it's much more pleasant and less irritating for your skin and for your hair follicles if you take it off in stages. So first stage, my with the grain, I'm fortunate that I have a beard stubble pattern that's pretty standard. So my with the grain will be this way and this way and this way, and for the most part this way down the neck. And then my across the grain will be this way usually, and this way, and even across the lips and the chin and the bottom of the jaw. And then my against the grain pretty much is the same thing. It'll be going up and up and up and up. And I'll talk more about that when I get to it, because I do some modifications on my against the grain to kind of reduce irritation. So we'll start with the grain. Got your DE razor. You're gonna set the blade right on the skin, right where it's both the cap and guard are kind of touching, cap more than guard, where the razor edge is resting right on the skin. Not a lot of pressure here. This is a heavy razor, stainless steel, so I don't have to apply pressure as if I was using like one of those cheapy throwaway travel razors. And what I talk about when I mean cap and guard and whatnot, this is a 3-piece razor. It's got the handle, it's got the base plate part, which is what you pretty much see here, and then the top cap. So that'll be the cap, the base plate, and this is the guard here along the edge, and then the handle. And so that's what I mean. You want to put the razor at a point where you can rotate down just until it reaches the skin, and that's your shaving point. That's the beginning of your like shaving window, and the shaving window ends when you rotate it here against the guard and the razor leaves the skin, the razor blade. So actually this lather still a little thick, starting to dry because I'm talking too much, but it's actually pretty close to where I wanted for my first pass, because I rinse between passes, and that adds more water into the lather that you kind of have to work in a little bit. So I usually start off with my lathers a little thicker.
You'll notice that unlike my feather shaves, when I'm using that,
I'm not stretching my face because basically that's one of the benefits of a DE razor is between the cap and the edge of the blade and the razor guard, it's doing all the stretching for you. There are times where I might like tighten up when I'm making a stroke just to kind of help a little bit in some difficult areas, but generally not. That was my first pass. Getting as much of that old drying soap off as possible. Generally it won't get that dry when I'm shaving. It's just because I'm talking while I'm doing it. So my face is actually still kind of wet and moist. I'm going to work in this other lather for my brush. Very nice. Flinging a little bit. That's all right. It's just soap. Look at that, still nice and thick, even with that extra water in there. All right. Ready for the across the grain pass. Same thing, starting with the cap and going just until that blade hits the skin and then shaving at that angle. That's called more riding the cap, whereas if you started here and you brought the edge in, it'd be called riding the guard. But across the grain, remember, east to west, west to east. I kind of take my shaving in sections. I do a section and then mirror that section on the other side. I don't know why, it's just I do it. Sometimes I'll do short strokes, sometimes I'll do longer strokes. Rinse off between strokes, like a certain series of strokes, so when I finish the section I'll rinse my razor off, just because I personally don't like lather all over the place. I know some people, KJ, don't mind it, but I know I'm not going to drop it, but it's just, I don't know what it is. It's a personal preference thing. So like here I'll do a little bit of stretching just because this is a sensitive area for me. If I get nicks anywhere, it's usually on my upper lip because it's hard. Like that. Do the other side. All right. And I don't have a perfectly flat chin. I know it kind of looks like it, but it's not. So I don't do much of a across the grain here. I kind of just do another with the grain at an angle. That would be what I would call a hybrid pass, or a hybrid stroke. Where I'm doing partially with the grain and partially against the grain, so it's coming in like at a diagonal across the face. But here is not so bad. And I don't do across the grain on my neck, just because it's not practical for me with a DE or a straight razor or shavette. So rinsed off, and I'm gonna rinse off my face. I'm still using warm water for my rinses, just to keep that hydration and that open pore hydrated whiskers. it's time for the pass that finishes it all, the against the grain. Still got plenty of lather. Working in that extra water that was on my face and the lather. Alright, you can see still pretty thick, not that opaque, or excuse me, not that, yeah, see-through. So against the grain, I hold mine like this, makes it easier for me. The balance of the razor is some around here. I usually end up holding the razor in the last half. I know some people like to hold really close, but it makes me use too much pressure when I do that, so I try to keep a looser grip toward the end of the razor. Against the grain will be south to north in most parts. On my lips, with this razor I can do mostly a south to north, but I do like to mix in some kind of a across the grain hybrid stroking just to make it easier, because I can get a lot of burn and stuff up here from the razor. Short strokes on my against the grain usually, just because I don't want to. This is what gets me the BBS. I don't want to miss. Oops, sorry about that. Had some technical difficulties there. Yeah. But alright, where was I at? Against the grain, short strokes, what I try to do. That way, whoops, I'm not missing very much. Still doing the same north-south pattern for now, or excuse me, south to north. And when we say south to north, it comes from this idea of mapping your beard, and the directions that your beard grows kind of helps you solidify that idea of what's exactly with the grain, or across the grain, or against the grain. Alright, here we go. I'll start in the upper lip area, and I'm going to do a hybrid stroke today against the grain with some across the grain mixed in there, because I just don't feel like chasing that much today, so we'll do this. I'll still get a pretty good result. Once it all normalizes, my skin kind of gets back to where it normally is, but it just won't be a long-lasting, if it is BBS, it won't be long-lasting. Something that's helpful on the lower lip is if you have this extreme curvature, kind of puff it out with your tongue. Here's that hybrid stroke. Is my beard pattern. It looks like a hybrid stroke, but my beard pattern is a little swirly in here. And
Kids are out there playing Fortnite. It's keeping him semi-quiet.
Alright, that'll do it. Because of my technical difficulty, which was actually running out of space on my phone, I kind of had some lather issues. But alright, so that was my last pass, and now what I like to do is I do my first cold water pass, which helps to begin tighten up the pores in the skin and stop any razor burn irritation. Cold water is kind of that first line of defense against those things. Helps the skin naturally tighten a little bit. Instead of applying stuff like alcohol or witch hazel or alum, things like that. I'm going to go ahead and pull what's left on my brush, because another step I like to get the moisture and nice scent properties and skin food properties of the soaps is rub what I call a lather soak. So all my passes are done. I'm not going to shave this lather off. I'm going to let it soak on the skin for a little bit. Just because soap is nice and slick and hydrating, and it begins that process of kind of helping the skin heal a little bit, I feel. Some people putting soap back on their face after they're done with their passes kind of dries out their skin. That can happen, but I like this step. Now is when I clean out my brush. There's my brush, my little bowl, and I've gone over this before, but I kind of clean out the brush, swirl it around in water just until the water starts to become clear again. It's not all soapy. That. Squeeze out the brush, get some of that water out, and then I'll shake it out. And then I'll towel strop it. I know somebody's probably gritting their teeth right now. You don't have to do that. That's alright. You don't. About half the stuff we do in shaving you don't have to do. It's all preference. I like it. Alright, long enough to soak today. Cold water rinse again. Yeah, still got some stubble going on. I can feel it. That's alright. I'll be, by the time my skin normalizes, probably 70% BBS, with the rest being on that border between BBS and DFS. What that means is BBS is you can't really feel stubble in any direction when you start rubbing on your face, up or down or anything like that. And EFS, you can usually one direction, you'll feel a little bit of stubble still. Alright, and since the DR Harris was a sandalwood scent, I'm going to finish off with my Proraso Red aftershave lotion. It's really nice. They call it a lotion. It's aftershave. I don't know why the Italians call it a lotion. I can't remember the difference. I think because it's got some extra oils in here, and it's not just purely alcohol based. But this is a really nice sandalwood scent, really clean, bright, and it's got a little bit of powdery fresh, not too much, not as much as Pinot Clubman, but
still really nice.
All right, that's the shave. And I just go about next letting the soap sit out because I bloomed it and it's got a bunch of water in there. Let some of that evaporate just to help store it properly, and there's no buildup of any gunk or anything on top of it before my next shave. And then the razor, because it's all wet, I might dry it a little bit with a towel next, but what that'll get is the head all the way up to the handle will get dipped in alcohol, like a 70%, or even some people do like a 90% isopropyl alcohol, like rubbing alcohol, and that'll help evaporate the water more quickly, even though it is stainless steel. Or other razors have like coated Zamak or coated brass. It'll help prevent like tea stains, where the razor blade will leave like little stain marks because of the soaps and water content and all that, and the reactions between the metals. It'll help from leaving stains and things like that, which will mess up the nice look of the razor. Rather than that, I hope that was a little bit informational. By the way, I wanted to mention that you're welcome to comment on these videos. I welcome comments, any questions that you might have. I don't know everything. I've only been doing this maybe like 4 years, something like that. But I certainly am open to helping you find answers about your shaving questions or anything else. And do look us up at theshavingcadre.com. There's a bunch of good content on there. We've got one guy, Josh Dagwood-Z, that has done written and video reviews of a ton of really nice soaps. We've got guys like Chad, one of the owners, who does some reviews here and there, and he's taking a look at some different razors, like the Timeless and the Aristocrat and stuff like that. A lot of good content up there. A really nice bunch of guys. We're about to kick off our bingo today, if it hasn't started already. I haven't checked, but hope to see you there. And once again, I'm GearNoir, Chris, and this one was for Nurse Dave's dad. Peace out, guys. We'll see you later.